In my past life, I died on my wedding day, watching my fiancé kiss his ex-girlfriend behind the church. Now I'm back 3 months before we first met. This time I won't be anyone's second choice. I have bigger dreams than being his backup plan, and when his girlfriend dumps him again, he'll learn that some things can't be fixed with sweet words and desperate promises. I opened my eyes to the sound of my old alarm clock playing Taylor Swift's Love Story. My heart stopped for a moment as I looked around the small dorm room with its pale blue walls and white curtains flowing in the morning breeze. This couldn't be real. I died. I remember dying. My hands shook as I grabbed my phone from the bedside table. The date stared back at me, September 15, 2020. 3 months before I would meet Jack Thompson at the winter formal. 3 months before the biggest mistake of my life would begin. I sat up slowly, touching my face, my arms, my legs. Everything felt real. The morning sun warmed my skin through the window, and the fresh coffee smell from my roommate's machine filled our small room. I wasn't dead. I was back. The memories of my past life hit me like a tidal wave. I remembered being the sweet, quiet girl who always helped Jack with his problems. The shoulder he cried on every time Lisa broke his heart. The friend who stayed up late listening to him talk about how much he missed her. The fool who believed him when he said I was different, that he had finally seen what was in front of him all along. I remembered our engagement, how happy my parents were that I was marrying into the wealthy Thompson family. How proud I felt wearing his grandmother's ring. And then, most painfully, I remembered my wedding day. The way my white dress caught on the church steps as I ran out back, following a feeling in my gut. The sight of Jack pressing Lisa against the wall, kissing her like I didn't exist. The tears that blinded me as I drove away. The truck that I didn't see coming. My roommate Rachel's voice snapped me back to reality. Sarah? Are you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost. I almost laughed at how right she was. I had seen a ghost my own. I'm fine, I managed to say. Just had a weird dream. Rachel shrugged and went back to getting ready for class, but I couldn't move yet. My mind was racing with possibilities. I had a second chance. A chance to do everything differently. I grabbed my journal and started writing. This time there would be no more being the nice girl who waited in the wings. No more putting my dreams on hold to help Jack chase his ex-girlfriend. No more settling for being someone's backup plan. My hands were steady now as I made my list. 1. Focus on getting into medical school. My original dream before Jack convinced me to switch to business to help with his family's company. 2. Join the hospital volunteer program I skipped last time because Jack said it took too much time away from us. 3. Keep my friendship with Emma that I lost because Jack thought she was a bad influence for encouraging me to be more independent. 4. Start taking the photography classes I always wanted to try. 5. Most importantly, avoid Jack Thompson at all costs. The morning sun grew stronger, lighting up my small dorm room. Everything looked different now, brighter somehow. In my past life, I had spent these college years trying to be perfect for someone else. The quiet, supportive friend who never caused problems. The girlfriend who changed her whole life to fit into his world. The fiancé who ignored all the red flags because she was so grateful to be chosen. Not this time. I got up and started getting ready for class. My reflection in the mirror showed the same face I remembered, young, fresh-faced, with long brown hair and green eyes that still held hope instead of heartbreak. But inside I was different. 24 years of memories lived behind these 18-year-old eyes. Rachel was still chattering about weekend plans as I packed my bag. In my past life, I would have spent the weekend helping Jack with his business class project. But that Jack didn't exist in my life yet. This time those hours were mine. Want to join the pre-med study group tonight? Rachel asked, applying her lip gloss. They meet in the library at 7. In my past life I had said no. I had been too shy, too afraid of not being smart enough. That choice had set me on the path to meeting Jack, who hung out in the business building next door. Yes, I said firmly. I'll be there. Rachel looked surprised but pleased. Great. There's this cute guy Mike who runs it. He's brilliant at chemistry. I smiled, remembering the Mike from my past life. The kind, smart boy who had tried to warn me about Jack but who I had been too blind to listen to. He had gone on to become a successful doctor while I had given up my medical dreams for a boy who never really loved me. The morning air was crisp and cool as I walked to class. Students rushed past me, laughing and talking, living their normal lives. They had no idea that among them walked someone who had died and returned. Someone who had been given a precious second chance. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma, asking if I wanted to get coffee. In my past life, this was the week our friendship had started to fade because I was spending all my time with Jack. My fingers flew over the keys. Absolutely. Meet you at the grind in 20? This time would be different. This time I would live for myself first. And when Jack Thompson eventually walked into my life with his charming smile and empty promises, I would be strong enough to walk away. Because I knew something he didn't. I knew exactly how our story would end, and this time I was writing a completely different ending. The pre-med study group turned out to be the best decision I'd made in either of my lives. Mike wasn't just good at teaching chemistry, he made it fun. 2 months had passed and my grades were better than they'd ever been. Even better, I had real friends who liked me for who I was, not for what I could do for them. "Sarah, you're a natural at this," Emma said one evening as we left the library. She bumped my shoulder playfully. "Hard to believe you were worried about not being smart enough for pre-med. If only she knew. In my past life I'd let those fears win. I'd listened when Jack told me business would be easier and more practical. Now watching cells divide under a microscope felt like magic, and every new thing I learned made me more certain I was on the right path. The hospital volunteer program was hard work, but I loved every minute. Twice a week I helped in the pediatric ward, reading stories to sick kids and helping the nurses with simple tasks. The smile on little Tommy's face when I brought him his favorite dinosaur book made all the long hours worth it. "You're good with the kids," Dr. Anderson told me one day as I helped change Tommy's bedsheets. "Keep this up and I'll write you a great recommendation letter for medical school." My heart swelled with pride. In my past life, the only letters I'd cared about were the love notes Jack used to leave in my locker. Now I had something real to work towards. But life has a funny way of testing you. One cold November morning I was grabbing coffee at the grind before my morning class when I heard a familiar voice that made my blood freeze. "Large Americano with an extra shot, please." Jack Thompson stood at the counter, tall and handsome in his blue sweater, looking exactly like the boy I'd fallen for in my past life. My hands started to shake and I almost dropped my cup. He turned, probably feeling my stare, and our eyes met. I saw the moment of interest flash across his face. The same look he'd given me before in another lifetime. He smiled and took a step toward me. This was it. The moment that had started everything last time. But I wasn't that girl anymore. I turned away before he could speak, grabbed my coffee and walked straight out the door. My heart was pounding, but not from attraction, from pride. I'd done it. I'd changed the first domino in the line. "You okay?" Mike asked when I rushed into the study room a few minutes later, probably looking flustered. "You seem a bit shaken." I took a deep breath and smiled. "I'm perfect, actually. Just realized I made the right choice about something." Mike's warm brown eyes studied me for a moment before he nodded. "Well, speaking of choices, want to help me with the blood drive next weekend? The hospital needs volunteers." In my past life, that weekend had been my first date with Jack. We'd gone to a business networking event where he'd spent the whole time talking to Lisa. "I'd love to help," I said firmly. Life settled into a new rhythm. Days filled with classes, study groups, and hospital volunteering. Weekends spent taking photography classes at the community center, something I'd always wanted to try but never had in my past life. Emma and Rachel became the sisters I never had, and Mike was becoming someone special, though I wasn't ready to examine those feelings too closely yet. I saw Jack around campus sometimes. He'd always look my way, curious about the girl who didn't fall for his charm. Once at the campus cafe I overheard Lisa complaining loudly about him. Some things never changed. They were already in their toxic cycle of breaking up and getting back together. "I don't get why he keeps staring at you," Emma said one day as we left the library, catching Jack watching me again. "Do you know him?" I shook my head. "No," I said truthfully. "And I don't want to." That was the beautiful thing about this second chance. I got to choose who belonged in my story. And Jack Thompson wasn't getting a role this time. December came, bringing snow and memories of what could have been. In my past life, this was when Jack had first asked me out, right after another breakup with Lisa. I'd been so flattered, so blind to the fact that I was just a band-aid for his wounded ego. This time I spent those December nights in the hospital's children's ward, helping organize their holiday party. Mike and I strung up lights while the kids made decorations. Watching their faces light up when Santa arrived, really just Dr. Anderson in a red suit, felt better than any date with Jack ever had. "You're different from other girls I know," Mike said as we cleaned up after the party. Most people volunteer once or twice and disappear, but you really care about these kids. I thought about how the old Sarah would have blushed and deflected the compliment. Instead, I stood tall and smiled. Thanks. I know who I am and what I want now. And I did. Every morning I woke up grateful for this second chance. My grades were excellent, my volunteer work was rewarding, and my photography teacher said I had real talent. Best of all, I had friends who supported my dreams instead of trying to change them. That night, as I hung my latest photos on my dorm room wall, shots of the city at sunset, laughing kids at the hospital, Emma and Rachel making silly faces, I caught my reflection in the mirror. I looked different from the girl who had woken up 3 months ago with a second chance. My eyes were brighter, my smile more confident. I wasn't just avoiding my past mistakes, I was building something better. My phone buzzed with a message from Mike about tomorrow's study group, and another from Emma about weekend plans. On my desk, my acceptance letter to the summer medical program gleamed under the fairy lights Rachel had insisted on hanging. This was my life now. No more being anyone's backup plan. No more putting my dreams on hold. No more letting fear of being alone lead me into the wrong arms. I was writing my own story this time, and it was turning out to be better than any love story I could have imagined. Spring semester started with big news spreading across campus. Lisa had dumped Jack again. Just like in my past life, she'd left him for a rich graduate student. I heard the gossip during my morning coffee run but felt nothing except a strange sense of déjà vu. Did you hear about Jack Thompson? Rachel asked as she fixed her hair in our dorm mirror. Lisa totally destroyed him at Kyle's party last night. Called him boring and predictable in front of everyone. I kept packing my bag for my hospital shift. Not my problem, I said, but something in my gut told me it was about to become my problem. I was right. Suddenly, Jack was everywhere. When I studied in the library, he'd accidentally choose the table next to mine. In the cafeteria, he'd sit where he could watch me. He even started showing up at the grind during my usual coffee time. One morning, as I waited for my drink, he finally made his move. I see you here every morning, he said, flashing that smile that had once made my heart melt. I'm Jack. I took my coffee from the barista. I know who you are. Not interested. I walked away, leaving him standing there with his perfect smile frozen on his face. But Jack Thompson wasn't used to being turned down. The next day, a coffee was waiting for me at my usual study table in the library. The day after that, another one appeared during my biology lab. Each time I gave the coffee to Mike or Emma. Someone's got an admirer, Mike teased, but I could hear the concern in his voice. Want me to tell him to back off? I squeezed his hand. I can handle Jack Thompson. And I'd had a lifetime of practice. The breaking point came during my shift at the hospital. I was reading to Tommy, doing all the silly voices he loved for each character, when someone cleared their throat behind me. Jack stood there holding a massive bouquet of roses. These are for you, he said loud enough for everyone to hear. I know you probably think I'm just getting over Lisa, but you're different. There's something special about you, Sarah. I felt sick. These were the exact same words he'd used in my past life. The words that had made me feel so special, so chosen. Now I could hear how rehearsed they sounded. Mr. Thompson, I said firmly, this is a children's ward. These patients are recovering from serious illnesses. This isn't the place for your romantic gestures. His face fell. I just wanted to dash. To what? I cut him off, keeping my voice low. To use me as your backup plan? To have someone worship you until Lisa decides she wants you back? He stepped back, shocked. How did you dash? Please leave. These kids need rest, not drama. After he left, Tommy tugged on my sleeve. Is the sad man going to come back? I smiled and ruffled his hair. No, sweetie. He's learned his lesson. But Jack hadn't learned anything. He started asking my classmates about me, trying to join my study groups, even messaging my friends on social media. Emma blocked him after his third message. He's kind of obsessed with you, she said during our weekly movie night. What's his deal? I hugged my knees to my chest. He's not used to girls saying no to him. His ego can't handle it. Well, his ego better learn, Rachel chimed in. You're way too good for him. They were right. In the past 6 months, I'd achieved more than I had in my entire previous life. My grades were perfect. Dr. Anderson had already promised me a summer research position. My photography teacher had entered some of my work in a local art show. And then there was Mike. Sweet, brilliant Mike who never pushed, never demanded, just supported and encouraged. who looked at me like I was remarkable not because he needed something from me, but because he actually saw me. One evening, as Mike and I were leaving late from the hospital after a long volunteer shift, we ran into Jack waiting in the parking lot. "Sarah, please," he called out. "Just give me a chance. I've changed. Lisa made me realize what I really want, and it's you." Mike stepped forward, but I put my hand on his arm. This was my battle. "No, Jack," I said clearly. "You haven't changed. You're doing exactly what you always do, running to the nice girl who'll boost your ego until Lisa wants you back. But I'm not that girl anymore. You don't even know me," he protested. "How can you judge me like this?" I laughed, and even I could hear the sadness in it. "I know you better than you think. I know you'll say anything right now because you're hurt and lonely. I know you'll promise to change to be better. But most importantly, I know that the minute Lisa snaps her fingers, you'll go running back." "That's not true," he said, but his voice wavered. "It is true," I said softly. "And you know what? That's your problem to fix, not mine. I have my own dreams to chase." I turned away, taking Mike's hand. Behind us, I heard Jack call out one more time, but his voice was drowned out by the sound of my own heartbeat, strong and steady in my chest. "That was impressive," Mike said as we walked to his car. "Most people wouldn't be that strong." I squeezed his hand. "I learned the hard way that being someone's second choice just leaves you with a lifetime of regrets. I'm done being a backup plan." That night, I added a new photo to my wall, one Emma had taken of me in my volunteer uniform, laughing with Tommy while we made get-well cards. The girl in that photo wasn't anyone's backup plan. She was the main character in her own story. History really does repeat itself. Just like in my past life, Lisa came crawling back to Jack 2 weeks before spring break. I watched from the library window as she found him on the campus lawn, crying those perfect tears that always worked on him. But this time something different happened. Jack didn't take her back. He turned her down. Rachel burst into our room, practically bouncing with gossip. "Lisa made this huge scene in the quad, but Jack just walked away. Everyone's saying it's because of you." I kept highlighting my biology notes, trying to ignore the twist in my stomach. "That's his choice. It has nothing to do with me." But Jack seemed determined to make it about me. That evening, as I left my last class, he was waiting outside the building. "Sarah, please. Can we talk?" His voice was different, no smooth charm, just raw desperation. I turned down Lisa. "I chose you." I stopped walking and turned to face him. "You didn't choose me, Jack. You just finally chose not to be Lisa's puppet. There's a difference. Give me a chance to prove it's more than that." He stepped closer and I could see the sincerity in his eyes, the same look that had fooled me in another lifetime. "I've never met anyone like you. You're strong, independent, focused. You make me want to be better." "No," I said firmly. "I don't make you want to be better. You're just scared of being alone. There's a difference." His face hardened. "You don't know how I feel." "Don't I?" I laughed bitterly. "Let me guess, you'll say I'm different from other girls. That I understand you in a way Lisa never did. That you've changed, grown, learned your lesson. Stop me when I get something wrong." He stepped back, shocked. "How did you dash?" "Because you're predictable, Jack. You're not looking for love. You're looking for someone to fill the Lisa-shaped hole in your life. And I deserve better than being someone's band-aid." Students walked past us, some slowing down to watch the drama unfold. I didn't care anymore. Let them watch. Let them see a girl choosing herself. "I love you," he blurted out. "I think I've loved you since that first morning at the grind. You were so different, so sure of yourself." "Hey, Sarah. I'll do anything." For a moment my heart ached, not for him but for the girl I used to be. The one who would have melted at those words, who would have thought this meant her fairy tale was finally coming true. "If you loved me," I said quietly, "you wouldn't be trying to turn me into your redemption story. Real love doesn't need to tear someone down to build someone else up." "What are you talking about?" "I'm not, Dash. Aren't you? Every time you talk about why you like me, it's about how I'm different from Lisa. How I'm better than her. How I make you want to change. That's not love, Jack. That's you trying to prove something to yourself." Mike appeared at the end of the walkway, probably looking for me since we had study group. The sight of him, steady and sure, gave me strength. "I have dreams, Jack. Big ones. I'm going to be a doctor. I'm going to help people. I'm going to make my own mark on the world. And I won't shrink myself to be someone's backup plan." "I don't want you to shrink," he protested. "I love how ambitious you are. No, you love that my ambition makes you look good. Just like you loved that Lisa's beauty made you look good. Just like you'll love whatever quality your next girlfriend has that proves you're winning at life. Tears started falling down his cheeks. In my past life, those tears would have broken me. Now they just made me tired. Sarah, please, he whispered. I'll do anything. I'll switch to pre-med. I'll volunteer at the hospital. I'll dash. Stop, I cut him off. Listen to yourself. You're still trying to become what you think I want instead of figuring out who you are. That's your problem, Jack. You're so busy trying to be perfect for someone else that you've forgotten how to be real for yourself. Mike was walking towards us now, concern written on his face. I held up a hand to let him know I was okay. I don't want your grand gestures or your promises to change, I continued. I don't want to be the reason you become a better person. That's your job, not mine. Then what do you want? He asked, his voice breaking. I want what I already have, my dreams, my friends, my life that I built for myself. And someday I want someone who loves me for exactly who I am, not for how I can fix them. I glanced at Mike, who had stopped a respectful distance away. He wasn't trying to rescue me or prove anything. He was just there, steady and sure, letting me fight my own battles. Goodbye, Jack, I said softly. I hope you figure out who you are without Lisa. Without me. Without needing someone else to make you feel whole. I walked away, my steps getting lighter with each foot forward. Behind me, I heard Jack call my name one last time, but it sounded distant, like an echo from another life. Mike fell into step beside me as I reached him. He didn't ask questions, didn't demand explanations. He just smiled and said, "Ready for study group?" I looked back one last time. Jack stood where I'd left him, looking lost and small in the fading daylight. In my past life, this scene had ended differently, with me running back to him, believing his tears, becoming his backup plan until the day I died. But this wasn't that life. This time I was writing my own ending. Yeah, I said, turning back to Mike with a smile. I'm ready. 1 year later, I stood in front of the hospital mirror adjusting my new white coat. The pocket had Sarah Mitchell, medical student, embroidered in neat blue letters. Sometimes I still couldn't believe how much had changed in a year. Looking good, Doc, Mike said from the doorway, holding 2 cups of coffee. He'd started bringing me coffee every morning after we officially started dating 6 months ago. Unlike Jack's grand gestures, Mike's simple acts of kindness came with no strings attached. Not a doctor yet, I reminded him, but I couldn't stop smiling. Getting into the top medical school in the state hadn't been easy, but all those late-night study sessions had paid off. You will be, he said confidently, handing me my cup. The kids in the ward are already calling you Dr. Sarah. He was right. Little Tommy, now in remission, had made me a card that said, "To the best doctor ever," in wobbly crayon letters. I kept it pinned to my bulletin board next to my acceptance letter. My phone buzzed with a message from Emma. She'd sent a photo of an invitation to my photography exhibition at the community center next month. Still can't believe my best friend is going to be a famous doctor and artist, she wrote. I smiled, remembering how different things had been in my past life. Back then, I'd given up photography because Jack said it was a waste of time. Now my photos of hospital life were going to be displayed to raise money for the children's ward. Ready for rounds? Mike asked. He was doing his clinical rotations at the same hospital, though in a different department. Sometimes we'd meet for lunch in the cafeteria, sharing stories about our day between bites of sandwich. Almost, I said, reaching into my coat pocket to touch the small diary I always carried. It was my reminder of that other life, the one where I'd let someone else's dreams replace my own. As we walked through the hospital corridors, a familiar figure caught my eye. Lisa was at the reception desk, clinging to Jack's arm as he filled out visitor forms. They had gotten back together 3 months ago, exactly as I'd known they would. Jack looked up and saw me in my white coat with Mike by my side. For a moment our eyes met. I saw the recognition there, the regret, maybe even understanding. I gave him a small nod and kept walking. You okay? Mike asked softly. I squeezed his hand. Perfect, actually. And I was. In this new life, I'd learned that love shouldn't feel like drowning. It should feel like having a steady anchor while you swim your own course. Mike never tried to change my dreams, he just helped me chase them. Later that day, during my lunch break, I sat in the hospital garden where I often went to think. The spring air was warm and flowers were starting to bloom. I pulled out my old diary and began to write. Dear past self, remember when you thought love meant sacrificing everything you were? When you measured your worth by how much someone else needed you. Look at us now. Today I wore a white coat with my name on it. I saved all my photos instead of deleting them. I kept all my friends instead of losing them. I'm learning to be a doctor just like we always dreamed before we let someone else's dreams become more important than ours. Most importantly, I learned that real love doesn't ask you to be less. It makes you want to be more, not for someone else but for yourself. Mike loves me not because I'm different from someone else, but because I'm exactly who I am. He celebrates my successes without trying to take credit for them. He supports my dreams without trying to replace them with his own. Remember how Jack used to say we were meant to be because I was always there when he needed me? Now I know that true love isn't about being someone's backup plan. It's about being your own main character. I don't know why we got this second chance. Maybe the universe knew we had more to offer than being someone's safety net. Maybe it knew we deserved to live our own story instead of being a chapter in someone else's. Whatever the reason, we didn't waste it. We built a life so beautiful that our old fears can't touch us anymore. We're going to be a doctor. We're having our first photography show. We have friends who love us for exactly who we are. And yes, we found love too, the kind that feels like coming home to yourself instead of losing yourself in someone else. So thank you for dying that day. Thank you for giving us a chance to live again, to live better. Thank you for showing me that some endings are really beginnings in disguise. With love, the girl who chose herself. I closed the diary just as Mike appeared with 2 ice cream cones, a small tradition we'd started during study breaks. Thought you might need a sugar boost before afternoon rounds, he said, sitting beside me. The sun was warm on my face, the ice cream was sweet, and my white coat still had that new crisp feel. In my pocket, my phone buzzed with messages from Emma and Rachel about weekend plans. On my wrist, I wore the watch I'd bought myself to celebrate getting into med school. This was my life now, full of purpose, love, and dreams that belonged entirely to me. No more being a backup plan. No more living in someone else's shadow. Just me writing my own story, one page at a time. You look happy, Mike said, nudging my shoulder gently. I leaned against him, watching a butterfly land on a nearby flower. I am happy, I replied. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. And I was. In this life, in this moment, I was finally, completely, wonderfully myself. No backup plans needed.